At 69, Reba McEntire stands as one of country music's most enduring voices, a woman whose fire, faith, and unmistakable Oklahoma grit have carried her through triumphs that reshaped the genre and tragedies that nearly broke her. For decades, fans have seen her as a symbol of strength, always smiling beneath the bright stage lights, always giving more than she takes. But behind that familiar red-headed glow lies a lifetime marked by loss, reinvention, and the hard kind of healing that never comes easy. The heartbreaking news surrounding Reba today doesn't begin with a single moment. It's woven through the story of a woman who has had to rebuild more than once. From the plane crash of 1991 that took her band and changed her forever, to the quiet grief of losing her mother in 2020, Reba has lived a life where joy and sorrow walk side by side, and yet she remains steady, resilient, and profoundly human. This is not just a story about fame. It is a story about survival, about a woman who kept singing even when the world around her fell silent. Before the world ever heard the power in Reba McEntire's voice, she was just a young girl growing up on an Oklahoma ranch, a place where resilience wasn't a lesson but a way of life. Born in 1955 in McAllister and raised in the small town of Chalky, Reba was shaped by long days, early mornings, and the quiet strength of a family that worked the land and honored its traditions. Her father, Clark McEntire, was a three-time world champion steer roper, and her mother, Jacqueline, carried a deep love for music. It was Jacqueline who encouraged Reba to sing, teaching her to harmonize with her siblings on long drives home from rodeos. Those early moments, family voices blending in the cab of a pickup, became the foundation of everything Reba would later share with the world. Life on the ranch wasn't glamorous, but it taught her the principles that would later define her career: discipline, gratitude, humility, and the understanding that every dream requires a little grit to survive. Reba often spoke about how the endless chores, from feeding cattle to mending fences, built her work ethic long before she ever stepped onto a stage. And in a life where the land could be unforgiving, she learned early that heartbreak was not an obstacle, but a companion you learned to walk with. Her first real introduction to country music as a performer came in 1974, when she sang the national anthem at the National Finals Rodeo in Oklahoma City. It was a moment rooted in her family's world, yet it opened a pathway that would take her far beyond anything she imagined. Red Steagall, a country artist, heard her sing that day, recognizing a natural warmth and clarity in her voice. He invited her to Nashville, setting in motion the beginning of a career that would eventually reshape country music. But those early steps were not easy. When Reba arrived in Nashville in 1975 to record her first tracks for Mercury Records, she entered an industry dominated by male artists and rigid expectations. Her first singles barely charted, and she spent years quietly navigating the edges of the scene, performing on small stages, opening for bigger acts, singing with the same sincerity whether there were 20 people in the room or 2,000. It was during these years that she built her reputation not through sudden fame, but through patience and persistence. By 1977, her first charting single appeared, and although it wasn't a major hit, it affirmed that her voice had a place in the genre. What followed was a slow, steady rise marked by determination and an unwavering belief in hard work. She continued recording, touring, and pushing herself, eventually finding her breakthrough in 1983 with her first #1 hit. That moment didn't just change her career. It proved that endurance and authenticity could eventually open the doors that once seemed locked. What makes Reba's early story so compelling is not the speed of her success, but the heart within her effort. Every small victory was earned. Every setback met with the quiet strength she had learned back on the ranch. And even as the world began to take notice of her bright, unmistakable presence, she carried with her the simplicity of her beginnings, the sense of responsibility, humility, and family-first resilience that would remain at the center of her life. As Reba McEntire stepped into the 1980s, The quiet persistence of her early career began to transform into something unmistakable, a voice rising with clarity, confidence, and a new sense of direction. She had spent years learning the rhythms of the industry, understanding not just how to sing but how to advocate for the kind of music she believed in. And with each album, each performance, and each long night spent on the road, she was inching closer to the breakthrough that would define the next chapter of her life. 1983 marked a turning point. Her single "Can't Even Get the Blues" reached #1 on the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart, followed soon after by "You're the First Time I've Thought About Leaving." These weren't just hits, they were affirmations that Reba's blend of storytelling, vocal warmth, and emotional sincerity had found its audience. She was no longer the young singer fighting to be heard. She was now becoming the woman leading a new wave of country music with a sound that balanced tradition with a growing modern edge. But what truly shaped Reba's rise was her insistence on artistic control. At a time when many labels dictated what female artists recorded, she pushed back. She wanted songs that reflected real life, love, loss, responsibility, and the complex inner worlds of women who rarely saw themselves represented in the genre. This shift became especially clear by 1984, when she signed with MCA Records and recorded "My Kind of Country." With its neo-traditional sound and strong vocal focus, the album solidified her place as one of the leading voices shaping the decade. By the late 1980s, Reba had begun to bridge music with visual storytelling, embracing music videos just as they became a defining part of the industry. Her videos, grounded in emotion, narrative, and a sense of cinematic presence, helped usher in a new era for female country artists. Songs like "Whoever's in New England" and "What Am I Gonna Do About You" not only reached the top of the charts but also earned her her first Grammy Award in 1987. The recognition was more than an accolade. It was a milestone marking her transition from rising star to cultural figure. Her momentum continued into the early 1990s, a period when she became one of the most recognized women in country music. Albums such as "Rumor Has It," "For My Broken Heart," and "It's Your Call" displayed her growing artistic range while connecting deeply with audiences. Her live performances grew larger, more dynamic, and more theatrical, showcasing her ability not only to sing but to create an emotional experience shared by thousands. During these years, Reba became known for her unwavering professionalism and her extraordinary work ethic. She maintained a grueling touring schedule, recorded relentlessly, and continued to expand her artistic reach. She was not content simply to succeed. She wanted to contribute to the evolution of country music itself. Her impact could be felt across the industry as she helped open doors for future female artists, proving that women's voices, strong, tender, complex, deserve to lead the genre. By the mid-90s, Reba's influence reached beyond music and into television and acting, setting the stage for a new chapter in her public identity. But even as her opportunities grew, she never strayed from the authenticity that defined her early years on the ranch. Her rise to fame was not a story of sudden stardom, but a steady, intentional climb rooted in discipline and purpose. There are moments in a life story that split everything into a before and an after. For Reba McEntire, that moment came in the early morning hours of March 16, 1991. She had just finished a concert in San Diego, the kind of performance that blended energy, joy, and the familiar closeness of her longtime band. After the show, 2 planes were arranged to transport the musicians to the next tour stop. Reba and her husband, Narvel Blackstock, chose to remain in the city overnight. Her band members, friends she trusted, laughed with, and built her career alongside, did not. In the darkness of that morning, both planes crashed shortly after takeoff, killing all 8 band members and her tour manager. It remains one of the most devastating tragedies in the history of country music. For Reba, it was not a headline. It was not a moment meant for public interpretation. It was a personal shattering, a loss that carved itself into her life with a depth she could not have imagined. In the days that followed, Reba carried a grief that felt almost too large to name. She spoke often about how those musicians were not just colleagues, they were family. They had spent years on the road together, building the kind of trust that only comes from shared work, shared exhaustion, and shared joy. Losing them meant losing the very people who had shaped her sound, supported her rise, and steadied her through the early struggles of her career. But what stands out most in the aftermath was the grace with which she grieved. Reba honored each member with a quiet devotion that revealed the heart behind her public image. She attended private memorials, stayed in close contact with the families, and found ways to keep their memories alive in her work. Her album For My Broken Heart, released later that same year, became a tribute not only to the people she lost but to the resilience she had to summon just to sing again. The album went on to become one of the best-selling of her career, not because it was commercial, but because the emotion behind it resonated so deeply with audiences who recognized the sincerity in every note. This period of grief also reshaped Reba's understanding of purpose. She had already been known for her professionalism and her determination, but now she approached her career with a different kind of clarity. She spoke publicly about how art could be a place for healing, how performance could serve as a way to honor those who are no longer here. In a way, her music became a vessel, part remembrance, part resilience, part quiet promise. Beyond the album, Reba leaned into charity work and support for various causes, especially those connected to children, families, and recovery. She participated in numerous telethons, benefit concerts, and fundraising efforts, using her platform to honor the spirit of the colleagues she had lost. Her activism became another form of love, a channel for the grief that could not be contained in a single record or tribute. During this same time, Reba deepened her professional relationship with Narvel Blackstock, who became not only her husband, but also her manager. Their partnership helped stabilize her career in a period that could have easily broken her momentum. Together, they rebuilt the structure around her music, her tours, and her public presence. It was a time of profound vulnerability, but also of profound rebuilding. By the late 1990s, Reba had not only survived the darkest chapter of her life, she had transformed it. The loss remained, but so did the memory of the musicians who helped shape her rise. And through her strength, her tributes, and her continued dedication, she ensured that their legacy lived on through her voice, her work, and the heart she carried forward into every performance that followed. When the early 2000s arrived, Reba McEntire found herself standing at another turning point, one that did not come from tragedy, but from the quiet realization that she had more to say, more to offer, and more of herself to explore beyond the boundaries of country music. After decades on the road, countless nights on stage, and the weight of both triumph and sorrow behind her, she stepped into the world of acting with the same humility and resolve that had defined her career from the beginning. In the year 2001, she debuted in her first leading sitcom role, Reba. Rooted in humor, heart, and the everyday struggles of a single mother, the show revealed a different side of her artistry. Audiences connected instantly, not because she was a country superstar, but because she delivered a performance grounded in real emotion, a quiet dignity, and the warmth that had always made her music feel so personal. The series ran for 6 seasons, becoming one of the most beloved family sitcoms of its era. And through it all, Reba balanced television work with her ongoing music career, proving that reinvention did not require abandoning the past. It simply meant expanding it. But even in the midst of this success, life delivered another difficult chapter. In 2010, after more than 2 decades of marriage and a long professional partnership, Reba and Narvel Blackstock separated. For Reba, it was a profound heartbreak. Narvel had been by her side through triumphs, losses, and rebuilding. Now she was learning how to stand alone in ways she had not imagined. The end of their marriage also shifted her business structure, her personal life, and her sense of stability. Still, Reba moved forward with compassion, rather than conflict. She spoke openly about navigating the end of the relationship with grace, expressing gratitude for the years they shared and choosing to carry forward the lessons rather than the pain. Her strength did not come from pretending the heartbreak did not exist. It came from acknowledging it, honoring what had been, and allowing herself to begin again. This period brought her closer to her family, especially her son, Shelby Blackstock, whose career in professional racing became a source of pride and grounding. Reba has often spoken of how motherhood remains one of her greatest blessings, and in the years after her divorce, she leaned into those family ties with renewed appreciation. Meanwhile, her career continued with a steady momentum that reflected both endurance and evolution. She returned to Broadway in Annie Get Your Gun, lent her voice to animated features, and released new albums that carried the familiar sincerity her fans cherished. Her work became a testament to the idea that reinvention does not erase the past, it simply adds another chapter. And then, in 2020, the world shifted again with the global pandemic. Like so many artists, Reba found herself navigating canceled tours, uncertainty, and the quietness of a halted industry. But instead of retreating, she used this time to deepen her connection with fans through live-stream performances, virtual appearances, and the re-release of several classic projects. She offered comfort in a moment when countless people needed it, becoming not just an entertainer, but a source of steadiness and familiarity. These years also marked a new beginning in her personal life as she found companionship with Rex Linn, an actor she had known since the 1990s. Their relationship grew during the isolation of the pandemic through long phone calls, shared memories, and an ease that felt both comforting and unexpected. For Reba, it was proof that healing continues quietly, often arriving when we least expect it. Through heartbreak, reinvention, and the ongoing evolution of her life, Reba McEntire emerged not only as a country legend, but as a symbol of resilience. Her journey through these years shows that renewal does not come from forgetting what came before, it comes from honoring it, learning from it, and walking forward with an open heart. Reba McEntire's life has always unfolded in front of an audience, yet the most defining moments of her journey have never been the ones captured by cameras. They belong to the quiet places of her heart, the parts shaped by loss, devotion, and the unbreakable ties of family. And in the years after her public heartbreaks, the deepest shift came not from a headline, but from the passing of the one woman who had anchored her since childhood, her mother, Jacqueline McEntire, who left the world in the year 2020. Jacqueline had been more than a mother. She had been a teacher, a coach, a musical compass. Long before Reba ever stepped onto a stage, Jacqueline recognized the rare quality of her daughter's voice and nurtured it with the discipline of someone who understood the cost of chasing a dream. That guidance shaped every step Reba took into country music, and it continued to shape her long after she became a superstar. Losing her mother created a silence that fame could not fill, and Reba carried that absence the way people carry old wounds, with strength, with reverence, and with a tenderness that shaped everything she did afterwards. Yet even in grief, the McEntire family remained the steady foundation that helped her find balance again. Reba's bond with her siblings, Alice, Paik, and Susie, deepened in those years, their shared history reminding her that her roots were stronger than the sorrow pressing against her. This closeness offered a quiet assurance, a reminder that she was never walking through life alone, no matter how heavy the path became. At the same time, Reba began pouring her heart back into the world in a new way. Nashville had always looked to her as a pillar of strength, but in this chapter of her life, she stepped forward as a mentor to younger artists who were navigating the industry she had spent decades mastering. She became a voice of guidance, stability, and honesty, offering the kind of grounding presence that her mother had once offered her. It was one of the few ways she could transform grief into purpose. Her charity work also grew during this period, as she leaned into causes that reflected her own values: compassion, service, and community. Fans saw this not as a public gesture, but as a continuation of the heart she had always carried. For Reba, these efforts were expressions of gratitude, small ways of honoring the blessings she had received and the losses she had endured. But for many who knew her story, the sadness she carried had deeper roots. Decades earlier, in the year 1991, Reba endured one of the darkest moments of her career when a plane crash took the lives of several members of her touring band. That tragedy never left her. It became a part of her, a reminder that life could change with one phone call, that grief could carve its way through success and leave a permanent mark. Her mother's passing awakened that older sorrow, connecting one chapter of heartbreak to another. These losses found their way into her work, emerging most clearly in her album Stronger Than the Truth, a project built from raw honesty and emotional clarity. Every lyric reflected a lifetime of loving fiercely, losing deeply, and learning how to rebuild the pieces left behind. It was not an album designed for charts or applause. It was an album created from memory, pain, and resilience. And within this landscape of personal change, Reba stood at a crossroads, not broken but transformed. Loss had reshaped her understanding of vulnerability. Family had strengthened her commitment to love. Mentorship and charity had opened new pathways for purpose. And her music carried the echo of every truth she had lived. In the end, Reba McEntire's story is not one of unbroken triumph, but of enduring courage. She has lived through heartbreak that no stage or spotlight could soften, yet each loss shaped her into the artist and woman she became. From the early guidance of her mother, Jacqueline McEntire, to the shared strength of her siblings Alice, Paik, and Susie, her foundation remained steadfast, even when the world around her shifted. Through mentorship, charity, and her music, she translated grief into connection, offering the next generation both inspiration and understanding. Her experiences, from personal tragedies to the quiet moments of reflection, have informed every note she sings, every story she tells, and every audience she moves. Albums like Stronger Than the Truth carry the weight of a life lived fully, a life tempered by love, loss, and unwavering resilience. Reba's journey reminds us that the deepest strength often grows from vulnerability, that devotion to family and craft endures beyond applause, and that the quiet power of compassion leaves a legacy far richer than fame alone. Her story is a testament to the human spirit, lived with honesty, warmth, and grace. For more emotional stories, check out this video.